first question: How did you sort of? How were things when you met Lio?
When I met Lio, things were pretty okay. I was on a bit of a job hunt during the time, but when I met him, things were fairly good. He invited me to the Senate because I was looking for work and just doing what I wanted and doing what I enjoyed doing. So he invited me to the Senate, but he was like, "Be warned, the server is completely barbaric. We are all targets for bullying and harassment." And I I kind of shrugged it off because I thought, oh well, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that bad. And then I joined the server. Most of the members in there were pretty welcoming. Aside from like what he told me, I didn't believe it when I first joined. So when I first met him, things were fairly chill. But when it came to the adoption, it was really tough on me during that time because I had a very weird relationship with my parents. It's like I would talk to them off and on, and I would be encouraged not to talk to them anymore, especially my father. And then when he passed away, that was when Leo took me under his wing. So that's what happened, kind of before and during the adoption.
Okay. Um, what were your first impressions of Lio when you first met him?
My first impressions of Lyle were when he first called me, he was very open about his questioning, but during it, I was just very intimidated. I don't know why. He seemed very intimidating, but he was still pretty open about, he was having open discussions with me. So, my first impression of him was he's okay, he's kind of scary, but it's nothing to be worried about. But nowadays, I just don't like him.
And it's known that you at some point lived in in Lio's household with him. Between when you first got adopted by Lio Convoy and when you finally did move in, how long would you say it took?
For me to move in with Lio, I actually remember it being at least 2 years when I moved in with him because even when I was adopted, I was living on my own. I wasn't mentally unstable. Yeah, I was a bit messed up, but for really realizing it, I had no reason to be down here. I just kind of wanted to hang out with him more often. I wanted to be around him more often. But that was kind of the sole reason of me moving in the first place because I wanted to be around him. I wanted to be around who I thought was my family. But since all of this, it just shit the bed, really.
So back to actually just sort of a follow up on your first impressions of Lio when you first met him. Do you have any comments on his appearance, his hygiene, his manners, attitude, etc.?
To really get into how I felt about what he looked like and how he really was in person, all I can say is one word: disgusting. And I don't like saying that in a really mean way, but he really needs help with that. And again, not trying to be a dick. It smells like he hadn't taken a shower in weeks. Uh, when he wears black shirts, you can see like it looks like snow is on his shoulders, and that's really gross. Um, I know that he's working every day, so I don't entirely blame him, but there's always time for hygiene. Him as a person, he's very extroverted online, but introverted in person, which means he stays in his office all day, and he he would just stay in there and work on his figures all day, and it was to a point where I had begun to really think to myself when I officially moved with him, And I was like, holy shit, did I just make the biggest mistake of my life? Because I had friends, I had family back where I lived. And yeah, there was a bit of me that was like, oh, I hate my job. But in reality, me moving in with him and realizing who he really was the biggest mistake I've made by far.
Have you ever seen Thomas attempt to adopt anyone else, either online or offline?
Seeing him try to adopt anybody else, I don't entirely think so, aside from Hopeless Peaches. I'd never seen him try and comfort anybody in the way that he does with her, or anything in that manner. Uh, Personally, I have not seen it. He has not been a very kind person lately. So, in the grand scheme of things, to answer your question bluntly, aside from Hopeless Peaches, no.
Did Lio ever approach you with the idea of moving in with him?
He didn't approach me with the idea of moving in with him. I think I was in a moment of desperation to say, I would love to be here. I would love to be around you guys more often. And it's like, I want to stay because there was a lot of good that I was seeing, but I was not prepared for the bad. You know how people say it's like you got the good, the bad, and the ugly? I was around all three with Lyle. I He did kind of instigate the idea. He did kind of like fan the flames when it came to that. And he kept asking and asking and asking. And yeah, I was procrastinating because I was dealing with a lot of mental and medical issues. There were many reasons as to why I shouldn't have moved, but what was going on with Peaches was probably the biggest part of me regretting what I said back then. I don't think that there was a lot of hope for our relationship to have mended. So I was wanting to really backpedal and be like, I can't do this. So I hope that answers your question.
All right. What made the idea of adoption so appealing to you?
The idea of adoption was it kind of came out of nowhere because as I said, I had a weird relationship with my parents. My mom was very strict growing up, and my dad was a raging alcoholic. Um, I didn't have really much of a good relationship, but they weren't entirely bad either. I used to live close to my dad, actually. He lived right down the street from me. I would check on him every day, and he was probably my best friend. I just didn't realize it. But during the time my dad actually uh, moved away and got a new place not too far from me again, I still felt pretty lonely without a really good father model. So I thought with Lio, he was going to fill that space. And it's like you're the father that people wish they had, and you're the father that I wish I had. It's like you have a very paternal you have a very paternal personality, and I can see why some people like you. And it was after I pretty much bared my heart and soul to him that I said all that. And that was when I got the Laos Pride role in the Senate that exact same day. Um, that was what made things appealing. I wanted a paternal role model, but it was only after my dad passed away that I was able to get that, and that is really heartbreaking because there's a lot I could say on that, but I'm gonna keep that confidential for now.
When conflict arose between siblings, were you all expected to handle it yourselves, or would Thomas make an attempt to resolve the issue or help?
The conflict in between us as siblings, we would actually try to solve it with one another. We'd resolve the conflict together as often as possible. In fact, Jordan and I, we used to argue all the time, but we'd always find a way to make up, which meant we knew our limits. We knew we had to give each other time. That was where our conflict seemed to work itself out by giving each other time to really reflect on our actions and then talk over it and see where we can go from there. When conflict arose recently, it had to be a family intervention every single time. And back then, it wasn't like an interrogation in between siblings. In fact, it was, you two need to work things out. You guys aren't in trouble, but you two need to work this out. But then when it came to Hopeless Peaches, every conversation, she would be brought up to us as if it was an interrogation. So in the beginning, yes, we did try and fix things in between siblings, but recently it's been more like an interrogation more than a resolution to our problems.
The next question is: has Thomas ever given you financial or material support?
In the beginning, he did give me some financial support. He was actually very supportive of me during the time that I left someone during that time. I had barely any money, barely any food, so he would help me get groceries once in a while, and in fact, one night he actually um, bought me some, he bought me some food. It took overnight to deliver, but he did get me food regardless. Uh, Last year before I moved, I was trying to save up money, so I did ask him for a bit of grocery money so I could, get some help before I moved. Because, again, I was saving as much as I could. But yes, he did give me some financial and material support throughout the time.
How well did you get to know Thomas's wife, and have you ever spoken to her before?
I will say something about Lyo's wife. She is absolutely wonderful. I did get the chance to know her. In fact, her and I have the same interests, like the same music taste. She is overall a very strong-willed, hard-working woman. I love her to death, and if I were to say that she is probably a better parental role model, I would. She is the definition of a strong-willed person to a T. She is very confident within herself. She speaks brutal honesty, and even then, she was very comforting during the time I had to leave Lyo's home. When I was packing my things, they were at like right beside the front door. Her and I were just talking casually, and the last thing I said to her was, I'm going to miss you. I didn't get a goodbye from Lyo, but a I got an embrace from Lyo's wife. And the reason why I wouldn't have wanted to, if things were to have worked out, my relationship with Lyo's wife could have been so much better. Because, in all honesty, they people really take Lyo's wife for granted here. Lyo's wife is probably the only person who was trying really hard to keep shit in line. She was really the only one trying to keep things afloat. But because of Lyo's aggressiveness and him being so unapologetically brain dead with things online, she just tries to ignore it. Um, but I will say, Lyo's wife, I did get to know her. She is absolutely wonderful, just a total peach. I love her to death.
Have you ever witnessed another found family outside of yours personally? And if so, how would you describe it?
I actually did know of another found family aside from mine. It was actually from people at my old job. I'm going to keep their names out of this, but there was a really nice woman who would come into my store with her biological two kids and her two adopted kids, and she was raising them as their own, and she was lovely. She actually took me in once in a while if I felt scared, and if I felt alone, she would have me hang out over at her house. Um, she was a very wonderful person through and through. I still talk to her to this day. I love her to death. There are found families out there that can work, but it's just the way that Lyle wants his to function. He's wanting to play kids like a yokel and use them for clout, if you want me to be honest. It's embarrassing. But a found family, the definition of it is it's a found family. We didn't find it, we were forced within it. I think that was very foolish. But the found family I did witness, they it was very beautiful. It was a beautiful sight to see, and I never really saw Lyle as a savior. I didn't see him as a savior to me. I felt like I was more of a prisoner in this family than anything else. But with the person that I am speaking of, she has actually done more for me than Lyo tenfold, and will do so much more for kids in the later future. Like the thing is, I'm not saying that found families are just weird or gross. The one that I had was weird and gross. The one that I was once almost involved in as a daughter, um, I was actually in a bad headspace, but because of the friends that I made who were almost my found family, they were the ones that truly lifted me up. They were the people who actually would help me out emotionally and giving me verbal emotional support. He never did. He barely ever did. He just said for me to suck it up and be a woman.
In terms of your friendship slash adopted family stuff, were there any issues that went unresolved?
The family issues that went unresolved in between me, Jordan, and Opal, no. We never left anything unresolved. We'd always find a way to talk things out. We'd always find a way to cheer each other up and move on. Even if it's with an apology, if it's with spending time together and actually laughing together and putting in the time, absolutely in between me, Jordan, and Opal, we've been closer than ever. But when it came to Hopeless Peaches, from what I've gathered, she always holds a grudge. Whether it would be over something small or something huge, she always holds a grudge and thinks that she's going to be completely justified within doing so. But in terms of me, Jordan, and Opal, nothing goes unresolved. But with Hopeless Peaches, she would intentionally leave things unresolved so she would have something to be petty and angry over. Um, I tried as hard as I could to resolve things with her, but she continued to be passive aggressive. She continued to be angry. And I don't tolerate pettiness. I really don't. I've never been one to take it like a bitch. So when it came down to her discussing things with me or her being passive aggressive, it's something I couldn't stand. And there is something that I stand by, which is you have to show apathy at some point. And that doesn't mean that things should be left unresolved. It means that you need to walk away. You need to keep your mental health afloat as well, because you can't just focus on one person. You have to focus on yourself too. And that's what I had to do, show apathy. And that's what I explained to Lyle in the car. I said to him, I have to show apathy. There's a reason why I'm not talking to her. And the way he tries to resolve things with us has never been put yourself in their shoes. He only said that when it came down to Hopeless Peaches. And that infuriated me. He never did that with me, Jordan, or Opal. He only said that about her. So it showed where his loyalty really lied within that moment. So, to answer your question as bluntly as I can, in between me and my two other siblings who I still love and care for, nothing went unresolved. But with Peaches, her pettiness is the reason why nothing was resolved.
With that as well, in terms of your experience with being part of that, did it feel like you were stuck in a toxic environment?
To say that I was in a toxic environment is a heavy understatement. I was actually getting physically ill from how bad things had gotten. I was internally bleeding from stress. I had constant headaches. I was vomiting. I dealt with panic attacks almost every single day when I could even feel like Lyle was watching me. Because of the whole situation, I could not really sleep properly either. To really say that I was just uncomfortable in that is just an understatement to the scenario that we are discussing here. I felt like I was always being watched. I felt like I was always just having to be completely aware of my surroundings, almost hyper aware, to a point where it stressed me out immensely. Hospital visits, I needed those a lot, but I couldn't get them because he would always ask. It's just like, hey, what's going on with you? What caused it? Yada, yada, yada. That's not what I'm here to talk about. But to say I was uncomfortable or felt like I was trapped, I was very much a prisoner of my own doing because I made that decision to willingly put myself under his care. But care is not something that he really gave to me. It was later on in the time that I was visiting him, it felt more like torment. But it's nothing, it's the only person who actually gave me joy in that house, aside from Jordan, was Lyo's wife. She would actually start conversations like, hey, how was your day? That was the only thing that really brightened up my day. Just her presence alone. Him, he would never involve himself in my life. He never asked, and I never answered, because he would never try to really be there for me. He would always just ask, like, have you talked to Peaches today? And I'm tired of hearing it. No, I'm not going to talk to her because she's made me tired. And I, again, I was a prisoner of my own making because of the situation. So to say I was just uncomfortable or felt like I was trapped, again, total understatement.
Uh, I feel like this is just the elephant in the room, but it happens to be our next question. Were
Mhm.
there any signs of favoritism?
There were many signs of favoritism. Uh, it actually all started in Thanksgiving because I was on vacation to see Lyo, Jordan, and Opal. Unfortunately, during the time, Peaches could not be there, but now I see that was very fortunate. To see signs of favoritism, uh, apparently Peaches and I were the favorites because everyone was mad at Opal. Everyone had to be mad at Jordan. But then it turned out that Peaches was pulling on the strings, intentionally trying to lie about Jordan, saying that he was doing all these horrible things and said horrible things. And even then, Lyle would believe it. And when it came down to situations that would happen later on, I feel like that's not really my story to tell just yet. But when it came down to that situation, favoritism is, it was really there and it showed. I was not really I was not really shown any love or support. I had only hung out with him twice when I was actually around him in person, but it was every day that Lyle would be hanging out with Peaches or streaming with Peaches or doing something in call with Peaches. He'd never hang out with us. He'd never show any attention towards me or Jordan. So Jordan and I would have to go out of our own way to have our own fun, whether it be go out and party, whether it be going to a bar, whether it be, just going to the gas station and getting something to drink or going to a taco shop and getting something to eat. We had to make our own fun because Lyle was never there to share fun experiences with us. So, showing signs of favoritism here, he really favored Hopeless Peaches, and we were ready to just give up. So we said to ourselves, take him. He cares about you more, he makes it clear. So, to answer your question, yes, and that favoritism goes to Hopeless Peaches every time.
In general, did it ever feel like you could or could not be your own person?
To be my own person, being my own person, it sounds like a joke, personally, to me. To say that I couldn't really be myself around him, yeah, I could say that's true, because I ended up almost becoming him, in a sense. Because I remember being on a phone call with somebody who I was extremely angry at, and then when I heard it later on, I started thinking, I'm sneering like Lyle Convoy. I'm yelling like Lyle Convoy. I have the same anger issues as Lyle Convoy. And because of the guilt I felt, I really could not sleep. I felt like I had to do everything I could during that time to please him, whether it be becoming him or stressing myself out to the point where I felt like I was him. When I was in the hospital, I was really unwell, and I remember texting Lio saying, I feel like I have to be like you because you said that we're grown-ups, we're adults. We have no time to be sad. We have no time to stress. We have no time to shed tears. We have no time for that. There's no time to be sad. You have to work. It's either work or be sad. It's one way or the other. And I took that to heart and made that part of my life. And he said, never do that. That was only directed towards me. Then why are you saying it as if we have to follow that guide? We have to follow your rules. Because if we don't please you, if we stop crying, then maybe, just maybe, you'll be proud of us. Maybe if we just swallow our feelings like a big old pill, it just make you more happy for us that we're becoming stronger, that we're moving on from our trauma, that we're moving on from the things that we've done in the past. But that does nothing. To become him is what would make him proud. And I think, again, that is incredibly foolish of us to do. Yeah, but as I said, for Jordan transitioning, the whole attitude changed. He was just like, I don't know how to explain it. It just became more brutal, and I had to witness it and almost be a part of it. And that,
Again, because I asked Jordan the first time, and I think Jordan just didn't have enough time to digest or become comfortable enough to answer. So I definitely want to see if Jordan will speak on that, because that was a curiosity I had, if it was the transition, if that had any effect on the relationship.
well, with the
Since I have you here, from your perspective, how would you say the transition affected? Would you say the transition had any effect on the family?
Jordan's transition, it did kind of, it didn't muddy the waters per se, but it did change how Lyle would talk to him. I remember being in a call before I went on vacation for Thanksgiving, and it again, I feel like this is not something I can fully say, but I do remember Lyle screaming and yelling at Jordan saying, straighten your back like a man, stop crying. It's like you need to talk to us. And usually I would be the person to be like, yeah, he's right, he does need to talk to us, but in that moment I felt like I was forced to say something like that. But I tried telling I tried telling Jordan about how I understood how he felt because I was in his shoes. Because I felt like I had nowhere to go, I didn't know what to do. But Lyle stopped me in my tracks from saying anything like that. He said, "No, we're not doing that sympathetic crap. You're not doing that here." I had to hold my tongue from saying anything because I felt like I had to listen to him. But for Jordan's transition to being male, it did change how Lyle perceived him, and I think it was disgusting because just because someone changes their gender, it doesn't mean that you should change how you treat them as a human being.
Were there any rules set of things you could or couldn't say, or could or couldn't do?
The rules set for me specifically is that I could not smoke in the house or outside the house or around the house. Um, I was not allowed to even use any of my e-cigarettes or any of my disposables while I was there because Thomas really tried guilting me into saying that, you know, I can't do it because my family passed away from it. That's not my problem. I'm willing to do what I want. If I paid for it, I'm going to use it. I also was a bit of a pothead before I moved in with Lyle, but at the end of the day, I did stop smoking weed. I did stop using pot or anything THC related, but there was nothing going to stop me from getting nicotine in any way, shape, or form. Not even him. I don't care what he says. When it comes down to nicotine, I'm going to get it. I don't care what he says. But rules set for what I could say? No, not entirely. But it's just don't disrespect me is really it, and don't lie to me is really all the guidelines were. Just don't disrespect, don't lie, but then rules were pretty strict around what I could intake, like what I could ingest. For example, the vapes. So for me, yeah, I think it was just like, oh, it's for my health.
So there
But
was
yeah,
no sort of like trying to police your speech or anything, saying you couldn't use certain words, saying like, did you ever, and in terms of like disrespect, was it like in that case, did you sort of have to talk to him in a certain way, otherwise you were like walking on eggshells?
To say I was walking on eggshells, I didn't really. I didn't really walk on eggshells with him in the beginning, but when Peaches came along, that was when the walking on eggshells really happened. I felt like I was very restricted at that point. As I said, I was a prisoner of my own making.
During your time in that found family, were there any notable financial difficulties?
Notable financial difficulties, I didn't really notice it. So if I were to be honest, I'd say no, because Lyle would spend a lot of his money that he would get from his job buying figures and toys, and he would actually go to stores almost every other day to see if there was a toy on sale at Target, or he'd go to eBay buying stuff like Transformers crap or something like that. He'd always have disposable income. But when it came to the house, no, really. As I said, he always had disposable income, but most of it was spent on Gundam figures, Transformers, and other old toys that he wanted. And I think, again, I think that's fairly cringe. So he can go off with that, I reckon.
Clearly, Lio has made decisions you disagree with. Which ones do you feel are most important to mention?
The ones that are most important to mention, and I'm saying this to found families out there, never have a favorite in your family. Doesn't matter if they're the youngest or the oldest or the middle child, it doesn't matter. You need to share love equally upon your children. Whether they fuck up or not, whether they make a big mistake or not, you still need to show that support. And another one is don't make promises that you cannot for any reason keep. Because that was a big thing that really broke me. Is that Lyle made a very big promise to me and to my father, may he rest in peace. He promised that he would protect me and love me as his own. But he really destroyed that. He really broke that promise. And it was hard for me to really wrap my head around that, to where I would cry for hours just thinking about it. And another thing is do not for any reason try and scream and yell to intimidate, because all it makes you look is a fool. Just because you are being loud and boisterous doesn't mean that you're better than anyone. It doesn't. You boasting about how you fought someone once and won that fight, that doesn't make you a good person. That doesn't make you strong or badass. You only parade that one story around just to make yourself look cool. And also, when you have your own family there, whether it be your wife, whether it be your found children, do not give your information out as if you're going to fight somebody, knowing that you're going to fight somebody. And just because you think, oh, they're a pussy, it doesn't take away from the fact that you did that yourself and you potentially put other people in danger. That person, whoever he threatened with a fight, could have come here with a gun, could have done something to any of his children, his wife, but he never considers that because he is a fool for thinking that he's strong enough to take somebody on who has a gun. He has always threatened to fight people, and I think that made him look incredibly idiotic. Because him sharing his information, where he lives, what he does, and all of that, he made himself look like an idiot. He's not a samurai. He's not a ninja. He's not a boxer. He's not a wrestler. He is a normal man. Not even normal. But you need to pretty much just, to those who are listening, don't take anything he says seriously because he is a moron. I hate to say it like that, but he is not someone you need to be scared of anymore. He just yells and screams and calls people degenerates and retards, and that will take him nowhere.
After speaking about all this, do you still feel safe?
To say that I'm safe, no, I don't. And there's reason for me to say that. He knows me. And the fact that he knows me is scary enough, because he could expose things about me that I've always told him in confidence. That's what I'm scared of. And it's not just him, it's his daughter, his only daughter that he decided to keep because she was worth keeping. I'm not safe. In fact, I am very frightened to even come out with this kind of information, but it needs to be out there that he's not a good person. Never was and never will be. I think that he is an idiot. I do, but it doesn't mean that he's not dangerous to me because he knows who I am. He doesn't know where I live, thank God, but I am very much scared of him, and I just think that with the friends I've had that have supported me throughout this time, online or in person, those people have been the reason why I was brave enough to come forward and speak on this.
Have you ever worried about at all if there were any repercussions from leaving your family or group, or even speaking about your experience?
Consequences and repercussions, I do believe that there are some. Absolutely, I believe that. But it doesn't take away from the bad that he's done, if not the worst things that he's done to his children that he supposedly loved. He was supposed to care for us, he was supposed to tend to our needs and what we needed in a father, what we needed as a person, what we needed to become better people. We're not good people, but we wanted to be better. And we thought, for however long it may have been, that we would find that security and that protection within him. And now that we're speaking up on him, I don't know how much that's going to encourage him to speak against us, but also I don't care. If I do face repercussions, I can always turn the other cheek, because the friends that he has and the people that he's involved with, they're not anyone to be scared of. Even him, yeah, I'm scared of him, but the consequences for what he's going to do, for what he's going to say, it's not something that is worth my time. My family and my life and my friends are worth my time. He is not. His friends are not. Peaches is not. They are not worth my time or energy. They are not even worth my breath.
Have you ever witnessed, heard of, or experienced any activity within the found family that you would describe as abuse?
To witness things like abuse, I could say yes, and most of it is mental, the stuff that I've seen. I had never seen Leo threaten Jordan, but from how Lyle portrays himself as a big, violent, scary person, I wouldn't doubt it. And he admitted to it. He admitted that he wanted to slap Jordan. He admitted that he was willing to fight Jordan over nothing. And when it came to Opal leaving, that's Opal's story to tell. But me being a witness to him practically emotionally abusing and begging Opal to stay when she wanted to go, that really broke my heart. And during that Thanksgiving vacation I was on, I do remember having to wake up really early in the morning, around 3 in the morning, to Jordan coming back and sitting next to me and apologizing to me. And I do believe that during that ride, I I don't want to make assumptions here, but I feel like this is the time and place for it. Tom was always the one to scream and yell if he had an answer he didn't like. He did that to me. And I feel like he was practically forcing Jordan to apologize to me because we all felt like he was in the wrong because of Hopeless Peach's manipulation in that scenario. And I felt like that was not okay. But now I see it, it's not okay. The abuse in between me and him, there was some, and it's mostly emotional. And it was emotional and mental. And those are two different things to me. Because I was dealing with a whole bunch of gaslighting, I was dealing with a whole bunch of yelling and screaming and just passive aggressiveness during that time. And he called me by my name instead of a nickname he gave me. And I think that was kind of the sign for me that was just like, okay, this means he's done with me. This means he no longer cares for me. I'm going to walk away with that knowledge. And I wasn't even heartbroken by him saying, you're done, you have to go. But the only thing I was really upset about was the promise he broke. But to discuss abuse, I didn't see much of it to say that I didn't see much of it, but I could say that the things that I did see, I would consider it to be mental abuse, mental and verbal.
Did Lio ever seem to be under stress because of his line of work?
To say that he was stressed from his line of work, no, no, because Peaches would always be on the phone with him. Even though he's not actually allowed to be doing that in his line of work, he would still talk to her every single day, every single hour, every single minute, every single second, she would be with him. So that's the reason why he keeps going. But to say that he's stressed and tired from work, we used to hear it as a joke, because I remember he would come in sometimes and I'd be like, "Hi, Dad, how was work?" And he goes, "It was work. How are you feeling? Tired? Why do you ask me that question? Why do you keep asking? You should stop asking me that question if you already know the answer." And he says all of the "I'm tired" jokes, and I thought it's taken so seriously. But really, no. He has a very easy job now. He got a different position at the job that he once had. Way different position, in fact, where he's able to get home earlier, where he's able to spend more time in his office doing whatever he fucking wants. But to say that he was stressed from his job, uh, stress, no, tired, yeah. So there's that.
Okay. Jordan said to me that he delivers coffee and he does like line art or something for a comic book company. Is that correct?
Yes, that is all correct.
Okay. Nothing else. You probably maybe he counts his third job as like YouTube or something.
I don't know if he counts YouTube as another job, but he thinks that his vigilantism is a bigger part of his life.
And if so, were there any notable times when someone might have reached out and tried to talk him out of what he does online, like mention he needs to take a step back or get some help?
The only person who successfully talked him down from continuing this kind of career was Hopeless Peaches. I tried talking to him, Jordan's tried talking to him, hell, even his mod team, some of his mod team were telling him he needs to take a step back and just take a break. He would never listen to anybody aside from Hopeless Peaches. Hopeless Peaches was the only person who actually told him during 2023 to take a break. As I said, we've all tried telling him that, but he never listened. If someone was in the comments saying, "You should stop what you're doing and take a break," he would say, "There's no time for a break. I can't stop. There are many other people who are getting hurt." But what can one man do to solve all these problems? What can one man who's apparently so tired they can barely keep their eyes open, aside from taking care of all their toys, what can one man like that do for the internet? Nothing. Because it's vigilantism. I've never been very supportive of vigilantism. I was part of that group, and I found it to be very toxic towards my mindset. And that's why I convinced him to try and I tried to convince him to leave, but he wouldn't listen to me. The only person who was able to convince him was Hopeless Peaches, and I think that showed the favoritism.
Needless to say, his wife probably was one of the people who tried and failed.
I'm not completely sure of that actually. Oh, okay. Um, I've never heard her try and say anything like that. I can't really pin that really.
I've asked this question to Jordan, but has Lyo's wife ever expressed disapproval or frustration with his antics on the internet and all this sort of internet vigilante stuff?
I actually do remember talking to Lyo's wife about his antics online. She was very dismissive of it, but the times I would discuss it with her, it was very rare. Because I was more interested in her day and how her day went, because she was willing to open up about it. She was willing to discuss something that wasn't online drama because she never involved herself in that circle. She wanted to be a normal person. She wanted to live a normal life. But now that she's with somebody who is terminally online, she can't have that. Because now she's being pulled into something that she shouldn't have been involved with in the first place. And personally, I still love her too much to let her get hurt. I still love her too much to have her deal with that kind of stress. So maybe that is part of the reason why I talked to her about totally different topics, aside from when I was moving out. Because that was going to be the last time I would ever speak to her again. I haven't really spoken to her much since then, or probably really at all. But I hope that she's doing okay, and I hope that she's happy right now. I talked to her maybe once and then never again. It's hard for me to talk to her because of his influence on her. Well, the influence that he has on her is that they are really in love with each other. They are. Um, I think it's just that I'm scared that she would go to him saying that, she's still talking to me, and he would tell her, like, that's not our child anymore. You can't talk to her. And that I don't want my relationship with Mrs. Convoy to be tarnished because of him. Again, I still love her. I still care about her. And I want what's best for her. Because she is a wonderful person and doesn't deserve to get treated the way that she does, especially with Lyle spending most of his time in his office and barely talking to her throughout the day. She deserves more. She really does. But I can't really speak on her behalf for that, so I won't continue with that. No problem. Alright. Thank you for actually, thank you for sharing that, because that definitely does shed a little bit more light. Definitely removes a lot of the questions from the mix. I've always kind of been curious as to why you guys wouldn't try to maintain sort of a connection with her, seeing as she was the light in the dark from how it sounds. She really was. She really brightened my day. Even when I got the notice that I was getting kicked out, I actually was walking back from the gas station and she was there just raking the leaves outside, and we were actually able to laugh. We had actual conversation, and that was wonderful for me because I really do care about her. It's just, it was so heartbreaking for me to leave because of her. Like, if I were to have stayed for any reason, it was for her. She's too wonderful of a person to leave behind. Let's be honest.
What are your thoughts on Lyo's impact online? Do you think he creates a positive or negative impact, or somewhere in between?
The impact he has online, it's very mixed, but mostly negative. He tries really hard to portray himself as a predator hunter, but personally, throughout the time I've known him, I really haven't seen many files come up or any reports come up. Nowadays, he's only talking about people that are no longer relevant just because he needs something to talk about. He needs something to discuss. And he's almost become desperate for views and attention to a point where I believe some people might end up recognizing that. Because with the most recent uploads that he's been making, it wouldn't surprise me in the regards of what he used to do and what he does now. He's starting to lose touch on what it means to be a YouTuber, or at least a decent, nice YouTuber who reaches out to their audience. But the impact he has on his audience is like really damning because what it does is it gives this weird and almost fucked up perspective on what being a good person is, on what being a good person should like, on what a good person should do. Because what he does is just bring predators or freaking zoophiles or necrophiles into call just to laugh at them and point at them, but never do anything to have them take accountability, like press charges. And that's not his business to do in the first place. Personally, that's what I think. I thought that what he was doing was for a good cause, for a while, in fact. Now, with the impact that he's making, it's hard for me to take him seriously. It's hard for me to take him seriously online, but seriously in person, even though he's really gross and disgusting, like a full-on neckbeard, um, he's not. He's just. I have a lot of mixed feelings on that, but the impact he makes on his channel, it's mixed, but mostly negative. And I think that people need to start realizing that he is not a good person at all. He's just fucked up in the head.
How involved were you with the Senate?
I was involved with the Senate just enough to be friends with some of the mods. Like some of the mods were very close friends of mine, in fact. Maybe one of them was. Um, I've even I've even met somebody who treated me really good in the server, but we had to leave because, well, of how Lyle was treating us in person. He treated us like garbage. But the impact I had on the Senate, I was friends with a few mods, but since I left, there is no impact. They really didn't care much that I left, and I don't I don't care that they don't care. I just wanted to move on with my life and just live something like at least of some semblance of normalcy because I didn't really have a normal life ever since I joined the Senate because everyone was screaming, everyone was laughing at people, and just being overall bullies. And I've never been the person to really enjoy that. Like, you know, some girls are just like, I don't like drama, but I'm here for the tea, I'm listening to it. Like, I'd be there to listen to it and laugh to myself about it, but it's not really great. But when it comes to the Senate, I didn't really have much of an impact. I was just another artist, and no one really even knew that I was one of Lio's kids during the time. And frankly, I don't care. That is their problem.
Has anyone from the outside ever tried to intervene in your participation in this found family?
If anyone on the outside did try and get involved, actually, yes, yes. If you remember in the beginning of this interview, I did talk about this one woman who has a found family of her own. Yes, she did try getting involved. And that's because I believe she started seeing the red flags way before I did. Because she and I were sitting outside and I was smoking a cigarette with her, and she said to me, "You're really gonna leave all of this behind for this guy? Are you sure that's something you want?" And it actually did make me think for a little bit, because was this really what I wanted? Because after that whole fight I had with him, I was not really okay, and I was really scared to be with him by that point, to be around him by that point. But I was pretty much dead set because I have other things going on in Texas. So I said, yeah. It was a hesitant yes, but it was still a yes overall. I still said that I loved him because of course I did. Of course I loved him. He was my father, apparently. But to have that outside intervention with them, yes, we did have that, and I believe the people who were trying to help me out of that, their hearts were definitely in the right place. And I should have listened to them sooner because if I just stayed where I used to live, then none of this would have happened. None of it.
Do you feel that Thomas has taught you anything valuable or important?
To say that he taught me things, no, he never really taught me anything. I would learn really bad toxic traits from him. It was I had to be strong. I had to stop crying. It was things that he portrayed about himself. It was things that he would say about himself, and I would put that into my own beliefs, and I think that was my biggest issue. He never really taught me anything else, though, no.
Do you feel Lio is fit as a parent, in your opinion?
To say that Leo is fit as a parent is a literal joke. He is a joke of a human being, and to claim himself as a good father, that's a laugh. It really is. Because the reason why I say that is because look at what he's done to his three kids that he intentionally pretty much left behind for one. It shows favoritism, it shows abuse, and I really don't think that any of that should have been justified. None of it should have been, because he always said that we should fight for each other through thick and thin. But there were times that we were so fed up with fighting that we just had to give up. That he literally gave up on us before we gave up on each other. And that is his biggest flaw. And I would not be surprised if he ever heard this, he would come crawling back saying, I love you, I miss you, please come back, but it is too late for that. It is too late for him because he has proven time and time again that he is not fit to be a parent. He is not fit to be an adopted father. He is not fit to be a biological father if he were to have his own kids. Because if anything, I learned this. He is going to throw anyone out that is not valuable to him, that is not valuable to his beliefs, that is not valuable in general. He has proven that if you are no longer of value, he will toss you aside and get the next best thing. And that, in general, is just god awful. And I think that's something he should be ashamed of himself for. And with this, going forward, I am going to be a good parent. Because of how he treated me, I'm going to be a good parent. I am going to be good to my kids. He is not going to be a better parent than me. I am definitely going to prove him wrong on that front. And I sure as shit am already.